Well, hello, and welcome back to Beyond the Compass, where travelers and the paranormal meet at the crossroads. I am your host, Eric Garcia, and today we are thrilled to have with us a historian, ghost hunter, and storyteller whose work captures the essence of America's haunted past. Erin Egnatz is the creator of Hauntings Around America, a YouTube channel where she takes viewers on a fascinating investigation of iconic locations like the historic streets of Tombstone, Salem, Sleepy Hollow, and from the battlefields of Gettysburg to the eerie decks of the USS Lexington. A published author with 3 books in the paranormal, including her upcoming urban fantasy novel, The Jaded Knight, Erin's work has been featured in Newsweek, MSN, and soon an episode of The Proof is Out There on the History Channel. With a master's degree in history and a keen eye for evidence, Erin blends her scholarly perspective with an insatiable curiosity for the unknown. She's also starting in January of 2025, A Haunting Diary, Investigations with a Ghost Hunter, a podcast that provides a front row seat to her most chilling encounters with the unknown. From growing up next to a cemetery in her hometown to experiencing her first ghostly encounter at Gettysburg as a teenager, Erin's journey into the supernatural has been both personal and professional. With nearly 1,000 investigations under her belt and a methodical yet open-minded approach, Erin has become a leading voice in the paranormal community. So whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or somewhere in between, Erin's captivating tales will leave you questioning what lies beyond. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. Now, you've mentioned your fascination with the paranormal began as a kid when you were wandering cemeteries and you were watching Ghostbusters. I think we all got started with Ghostbusters.
Yes.
But then you had this experience at Gettysburg as a teenager. Could you tell us what happened there and how that shaped the way you view the paranormal? And you think it gave you a unique perspective of this field?
Sure, yeah. So I think my story is a lot like a lot of people's story where it's you visit Gettysburg and you leave with a ghost story. It seems like everybody has one of those experiences. For us, we were on a family trip. I was probably 13 or 14. And we were on the field where the third day of the battle was, which was a very, very disastrous battle. There was a lot of death on that day. And where we were standing is where most of it happened. My mother and I were kind of just standing there looking out over the big field. My dad was over to the side with my little sister. And we saw these reenactors. And, they were in their uniforms, they had their guns, and they started to do their march across the field. And we're like, okay, well, let's watch this. They got maybe 50 to 100 yards, and they just disappeared. The whole regiment just was gone. And my mom and I looked at each other, and we look back, and we see them actually, it's almost like they started over. They were coming out of the trees again, marching towards us, and we are just frozen, like, what is happening here? And we kind of, I think she grabs my dad and she's like, come over here. What is this? What do you see? What are those reenactors doing? And he's looking, he looks at us, he looks back, he looks at us again. He goes, there's nothing there. We're like, they're right there. And he didn't see them. My sister didn't see them, but my mom and I sure did. And it left quite an impression on me and her, actually.
Wow. How many soldiers would you say you saw in that group if you had to guess?
At least 20. They were lined up in a rows of 3. So they were, just they looked like a full regiment that you see in a lot of the Civil War pictures, but I thought they were reenactors because they were so good. But maybe not.
Well, yeah, that would be like, wait a second, what did happen?
Yeah.
I've yet to have something like that happen. I've talked to, I know a lot of people who have, but yeah. And so were you able to tell if they were Union or Confederacy?
I believe they were Confederate, looking back in hindsight because of where they were. And they had a blue type jacket, but it was more gray. And I know a lot of Confederates also had those uniforms. So.
Okay, so if you're kind of leaning towards Confederacy if you had to pin it down.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how did that shape? I mean, was that the spark? I mean, was there an interest in paranormal prior to that, or was that where it all began for you?
Since an early age, I would go wander around the cemetery that was right next to my house. I was always into, like you said, the Ghostbusters and everything. So I always had that interest. When this happened, it really did spark something, but I was still kind of young, and this was before you could really hop on Google and figure out what in the world I just saw. So I kind of just put it on the back burner for a few years. And by the time I got to high school, I had a mentor who actually showed me what it was I saw. And it really just caught like fire. And I haven't stopped since, 20 something years later.
And yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, your mentor was actually your high school history teacher. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, he was brilliant. We live in the Chicago area, so we have a lot of mobster things here. So he would tie in the history of the area with all the ghost stories of the area, because it turns out he was part of the Indiana Ghost Trackers. And so he would kind of take his history lessons and blend them together with paranormal. And we were all on the edge of our seats, because it made it interesting as opposed to the boring old textbook way of learning. You're learning with a little bit of a supernatural spin on it.
I'm sure the high school principal was thrilled with that.
Probably so.
But yeah, that sounds like a cool teacher. Why didn't I have teachers like that growing up? I mean, I would have totally, stayed in school.
Exactly. You're right.
Now you had a rather this time you had an experience at the Indiana jail where it wasn't that you witnessed something, but something physically happened.
Yes.
Could you share what happened there? Because you touched on it in one of your videos, but I'm like, okay, I want to hear more about this.
Yes, it's the famous Crown Point Jail. The Crown Point Jail is where John Dillinger made his escape back in the early 30s with a fake gun. He was
I heard
quite...
about that one.
Yeah,
It's
so
made it
unique.
out of soap or something, a bar of soap, I think.
Yeah, the theory is it's either soap or wood. Either way, it was pretty creative, and it worked because he got out.
Wow.
So this is where the jail was, and it was supposedly an inescapable jail, but apparently it was not. I go there a lot because it's my hometown, so I spend a lot of time there. Maybe that's why I've had so many experiences there. But one night, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, we were there doing an investigation. It was just me and one other person, my husband actually, and we were sitting in an area about halfway up. So like, I want to say the second floor. And we were kind of just taking a break. And we start hearing these slams from upstairs. And he looks at me and he goes, "I'm not going up there. Don't even ask." He's not into the ghost hunting thing. So that's not his thing. And I was like, okay, I'm going.
He's like, "Honey, I love you, but it's right draw the line."
Yeah.
Fun.
He stayed put. He did not move. Me, on the other hand, I grab my stuff and run up the stairs to try and pinpoint it. And I get all the way to the end of the hall where the sound was coming from, and it's just silent. I was like, okay, here we go again. I miss another one. And I start to walk away, and in between my shoulders, I feel this like push, this really hard shove. And I was like, oh my gosh, this jerk just pushed me. I cannot believe this just happened, because they don't usually do that. But in this case, it did happen. I moved a little quicker after that. I went down the stairs. I was like, okay, you know what? Why don't we go outside and take a break? I could not get him back in the rest of the night because he was like, I'm not going back in there. But I thought it was really cool. And that's just one of the 20 different experiences I've had there.
At that one location?
Yes.
Wow. So, I mean, did it feel like a blunt force, or in the moment, did it feel like a hand?
It felt like a hand.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it was really unnerving.
I just creeped myself out with my own question.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a little overwhelming. I'm not going to lie.
Wow. Yeah. I'd be like, some people say, "Oh, well, you're 6'2" and you're big." And I'm like, no, in the dark, I'm as scared as you are. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you process something like that? I mean, did it leave you more curious, or sometimes you felt like stepping back?
It makes me more curious, and that's not a good thing, probably. But I want to, it's like a puzzle I have to figure out, why are they here? What's going on? What's causing this? I have to figure out this puzzle.
Ooh, you're an investigator. Okay. Now, you've also worked with some pretty big names in the paranormal community, namely the ghost hunters and ghost adventures. What's something that you would say you've learned from those collaborations that's changed how you investigate or share the paranormal stories?
I have learned that to be a ghost hunter, it doesn't mean you have to be some famous person or whatever. You just have to have a passion for it. And when you actually work with these people, they're not these, I mean, they are big celebrities, but they're just people that are trying to figure out the same thing you are. Um, so it in a way it gave me the confidence to kind of get out there more because I was pretty shy and afraid to bring Hauntings Around America out there because you never know what people are going to say, but after investigating with them, I got that confidence.
So it was like, okay, there's more people like me.
Yes.
It's along
Yes.
those lines. I
Mhm.
like that. I like that. And then you have someone so low key as Zach Bagans. I mean, but
Yeah. Yes.
the paranormal world, can be very subjective.
Yes.
You have some people that are diehard believers, others are total skeptics. So, has there been a story, a piece of evidence, or experience you think has the best chance of making a skeptic say, or have you witnessed it? You know, someone goes in a skeptic and they're either a believer or they come out saying, maybe there's something to that.
Yes. Yes. I have a couple of things on video that I think are really good catches, but the skeptics are always going to say, but it could be this or this or this. And, you just nod and kind of go about it. But I have seen it first person because I do a lot of events where I open up some of these locations, like at Waverly Hills. I do several a year where I have people come in and learn to investigate with me and whatnot. And there was one time, and of course, it was at this jail that I was telling you about, the Crown Point jail. I had a guy come in. He was a complete skeptic. He wanted to try it, but it was more of just something to do that night. He was very cocky when he went in, and he was like, "You know what? I don't think there's anything going on." By the end of the night, he was the first one gone because he was so freaked out. He actually screamed at one point, and it was the funniest thing in the world. Um,
It's a little different when you're there in the dark,
yes, yes,
and the
it
temperature
becomes very real.
and the temperature drops for absolutely no reason, only where you're
Right.
standing. It gets a little more real
Yes, it does.
then. Did you feel? I mean, you had to, you had to kind of like not, laugh at him, but inwardly be like, "I told you."
Yes, yes, I definitely felt that gratification. I mean, it doesn't bother me if people are, they don't believe in it or whatever. I understand. Um, but I definitely got a little gratification.
As ghost hunters, as paranormal investigators, we deserve that occasionally. Okay, we
Yes,
get so much. We got to take our wins when we get them.
exactly right.
So, so the flip side to that, and I saw this in the article in Newsweek. So when you were featured in Newsweek, you talked about how skeptics in your life keep you grounded. Has there ever been a time when their perspective made you rethink or reframe something you thought was paranormal?
Yes, yes, very often actually, and I thank them for this because it makes me think, okay, well, am I right? Let me go and debunk it a different way. Um, Maybe there's suggestions because especially with my dad, he's very, very much, I don't believe in that kind of stuff, and that's fine. Um, and I remember one time I brought him a video and I was like, "Well, how do you explain this?" It was a shadow that was just crossing in front of you, but no one was there to make that happen. You know what I mean? Like, I had the light shining. The shadow goes right in front of me. There was nothing to cause it. And I was like, "Well, how do you explain that?" And he gave me a couple of different suggestions. Oh, it could have been, something over to the side. So I was like, okay, well, let's go back and figure it out. Let's really get into it because you could be right. And I don't want to post this. And people are like, no, that's just some random shadow. Um, so I actually went back to the location and I tried to recreate it how he suggested it. Nothing happened. I could not recreate that. And so, I felt a little more confident afterwards, like, okay, well, I tried to debunk it yet again, but I still can't explain it. So,
Well, at least you, I mean, it's good that you have someone, someone you can trust to say, maybe, maybe not. You're like,
Right.
okay, I'll take your word with a little more, a little more uh, gravity than I would someone I don't know. So,
Right.
you know, so maybe that's healthy in the long run.
Yes.
So, um, your work is taking you all over the country. And have you encountered a place so far that you felt was either just too dark or unsafe, whether it's, physically unsafe or energetically unsafe, to where you're like, you know what, let's pump the brakes on this investigation.
Yes. Yeah. It was actually in Valparaiso, Indiana. It was an old insane asylum, which, those can be very, very difficult to
I've
begin
yet to
with.
hit I've yet to go to one. There's one like a couple hours from where I live. I'm trying to drag a couple of friends, but they're tough guys, but not when it comes to this stuff. So
Right. And you definitely want a group when you do one of these kind of locations because they're rough. They are. They're really rough. This one, I was a very young novice as far as ghost hunting goes. So I kind of went in there with, I know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And I found that out very quickly. As we were investigating, it was myself and four other girls who also were just starting out. And we took turns going into, I want to say it was like a solitary confinement, but for the mentally ill. So is really unfair what they did to these people. And, they were kind of just shoved into these dark rooms. It was absolutely horrible. Nothing that would pass code today. But we took turns in this particular cell. I'll call it a cell. Um, we closed the door, each one of us one at a time. There's
oh,
no locks on the doors any longer because, they had long since broke. And I'm sitting in there and I really start to get that dark feeling like this is not right. Something's not right. And then I was like, okay, guys, I'm done. I need to get out of here. But we couldn't get the door open. They were pushing on one side. I was pulling on the other. And mind you, like I said, there is no lock. There's no latch, but we couldn't get the door open. And I really went into a panic attack. um, I was pulling. I almost was in tears by the time the door just slowly opened.
I would have been. So,
Yeah.
don't feel bad.
Yeah, that one was a place I will never go back to. And then I found out a few years later it mysteriously burnt down. So
Maybe that's for the best.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
And while I've yet to investigate an abandoned prison or asylum. And for me, it could be kind of interesting and I say interesting because I'm a former correctional officer. I worked in a state prison for several years in Arizona. And I've talked to people and I'm like, would the spirits know what I was? And all of them, without hesitation, said, yep. They said, the moment you walk in there, they're going to know what you did, what you are, and that's how they're going to view you.
Hmm.
So, and also on the flip side to that, I give you credit for sitting in the cell and closing the door, because unless you've been in that environment, because I've been in active working prisons, and even with the door open, it's claustrophobic.
Oh
It's
yeah.
smothering. And you were there at night?
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, major kudos.
I would rather deal with the dead than what you deal with. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I left it all behind. I'm like, you know what? I've had my fill of bad guys.
yeah,
Okay. I'm gonna do YouTube. Okay.
right,
You know,
exactly.
less people threatening me.
Right.
So now you've been doing this, you've been on this journey for almost 2 decades. And this is part of blew me away. You've had you've participated in about 1,000 investigations, and of those, you've had close to 100 personal paranormal experiences, which is incredible all on its own. So my question is, do you think there's a common thread or pattern that makes a place haunted, or is every haunting totally unique?
I think that every haunting is unique because it seems like each investigation I go on, some are just out of this world like you would never expect, for example, going to one of those asylums, you wouldn't think that the spirits would be so angry and almost like that prison kind of vibe, but you get that a lot with those versus I've been to a jail and you have just like the sweetest type interaction, as sweet as you can for ghost hunting, but it seems like it's dependent on the spirit and what I've kind of narrowed it down to is the dominant spirit that day. Because you can go into one place and you can get in a really aggressive night. You can go to the same place the next night and get nothing. Or then sometimes you may just get like a couple of beeps on the K2 and then that's it. So that's kind of how I view it.
Okay, so kind of a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Okay. And I kind of wonder, you think, I mean, especially in location where there is so many people that went through so much there, I wonder if the spirits almost take turns being the dominant one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I know you watch all the shows and you see all these different locations, and there seems to be one that's like more prominent than the others. But I just wonder, do they
Yeah.
take turns? It's like, hey, Bob, you had it last time. This group's mine.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I wonder too. I'm wondering if it has to do with their energy because I'm not really good with science. I'm a historian. We know history. We do not know science. And I wonder if it's something like that with their energy.
Yeah. So now with 1,000 investigations, you've captured what you believe to be spirits, disembodied voices. Out of all this evidence that you've collected over the years, what's the one piece that still gives you chills and why?
The one piece, and I actually cannot find it. I've been looking for it. It was way back in my high school days. We were at a place, it was called Widow McClary's, which was
Well,
an old pub. Yeah.
that doesn't sound foreboding at all.
Not at all. No, no. It was it was an old bar and it was on the south side of Chicago and the spirits that are supposed to be there were a bunch of mob spirits because Al Capone supposedly wanted this place for his own and the owners who were the McClarys said, no, this is ours. And obviously you do not tell Al Capone no. And that's how they got the name Widow McClary's. Um,
Ouch.
yeah. It's quite rough.
That's
He was
that's
a rough
a
guy.
yeah, that's a really interesting backstory.
Yeah, it was always so unique, but it has closed down since and become something else. But I remember we were down in where they would off the guys, and we were doing an EVP session. And this is back when you had the EVPs where you kind of rewound the tape and whatnot.
Right.
And we got into it and we were asking questions and we're like, well, do you know someone said some mobster's name. He was connected to Al Capone. I don't remember his name. And he said, yes, he killed me. And then that was it. And I was like, oh my God, that really just happened. And it just gives me chills because he's answering our question and he's going a little bit further with it. So that was pretty creepy.
And the fact that he's self-aware, he
Right.
understands where he's at and how
Yes.
he got there. I mean, that's out of the Conjuring movie. Okay, right there.
Right. Yeah.
So they said they had one spot in this bar where they would take people to kill. Was it like a room or a basement or something?
It was like a basement. Yeah. It was in one of those crawl space type ones, really creepy. And I hated it down there, but it was so interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that place.
yeah. I used to live in LA, and there's a comedy club out there. I think it's called the Comedy Store or something like that. It's been there forever. It used to be a mob hangout in the 50s, and back in the day, they said, yeah, basically the same thing. If a mobster wanted to off a guy, he'd say, okay, meet me downstairs in my office. The guy would go down there, and he'd shoot him through a hole in the wall. And if one understand that hole in the wall is still there, I mean, the place is just covered in mafia blood, but it's a very popular nightclub. Joe Rogan loves the place. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah. So here now with me, I'm very, I mean, I grew up hooked on X-Files. I didn't realize I was into urban fantasy until I realized that they define the X-Files and TV shows urban fantasy, which is why your novel really piqued my curiosity. But we'll get to that in a few. So what I like about urban fantasy is, it's set in the real world and with a little bit of like, okay, is this possible? And because of that, I'm also fascinated by folklore and mythology. And the paranormal field today, it often overlaps with folklore and mythology. Are there any supernatural legends that you'd love to investigate, even if they don't involve traditional ghost hunting?
Yeah, I'm interested in all of it, to be honest. I've always been I grew up in the South and everybody likes Bigfoot. So I mean, I don't necessarily want to go find him because he seems really scary. But I want to know about him. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a Bigfoot hunter on my podcast. I've been reaching out to a few because I have a really cool Bigfoot poster I want to hang up behind me. So it's like, yeah, that's I guess, my favorite. There's a old TV series called The $6 Million Man,
Uh-huh.
and growing up in the '70s, the show, the most popular episode they have is where the Bionic Man fights Bigfoot. Bigfoot being played by the wrestler Andre the Giant, who's already almost 7 feet tall to begin with. You,
Right.
you put him in this wig, the contacts, the growl. I mean, I think he is scarier than what the real Bigfoot probably looks like.
Probably.
And that's, I mean, when I hear Bigfoot, I'm like, no, they can't be scarier than Andre the Giant. And
That's true.
so that's been like my go-to cryptid. But
Mhm.
so maybe going squatching is on the horizon for you.
That would be fun. Yeah. If I had a lot of people with me, I would be like, let's do this. But you've always seen videos of it, and it's so interesting to me. I mean, yeah, the whole alien thing, but I'm just like, okay, whatever. But Bigfoot, I don't know. I don't know why it is. He is the one that like, or she, I don't know, is super interesting. But that's
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah, in fact, I mean, it can be he or she. In fact, the famous Patterson Gimlin footage from 1967 up in Willow Creek, the one that everyone, the go-to footage,
Mhm.
a lot of them say that's actually a female. And when the archaeologist or the anthropologist breaks it down, how they walk, the body language, and like look at this part, and they say that's actually, if that's a Bigfoot, more than likely it's a female. And they point out, and you're like, and you can see when they point it out, you're like, okay, I can see how that could be a female. So definitely, and
Yeah.
there's even like a section of the paranormal community that tie in Bigfoot and UFOs. Like he came off of a UFO, and I'm like, nah, Bigfoot's a local boy. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, totally,
Yeah.
and nothing that I don't discredit the UFO community. I mean, I'm interested in it, but
Mhm.
let's keep them separate. Okay, let's keep it a little
Right.
more real world.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, you get me on a Bigfoot tangent. I'll be here for hours.
Hey, yeah. I'm so interested in it.
So now I've had a little bit of experience with this myself. Probably not to your extent, but you've had experiences with shadow figures and disembodied voices. But if a spirit could sit down and have a full conversation with you, what's the first question you would ask?
What was it like when you were alive? The historian in me will just like take over.
Okay, so you want to nerd out over the lifetime as opposed to what's it like on the afterlife?
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't even know if I would ask that within the first 20 questions.
wow, okay, I like that response. It's like I'm like, oh yeah, the afterlife is cool and everything else, but tell me, what was George Washington like? You
Right.
know,
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
so a lot of investigators, talk about the emotional or the psychological impacts from their work. I mean, have you ever had one a haunting stay with you long after you left the location? Either like, it either really bothered you or maybe you brought something back with you.
I brought something back with me several times. Um I think that it has to do with my collection though, more so than anything, because being a historian, I collect a lot of historical items, and
Ah,
my focus is the Civil War. So I bring in a lot of war items. And I know that one time I bought a bayonet from Gettysburg.
oh,
And yeah, you got to go big time, right?
I was gonna say you don't start small, do you?
No, you can't do
You
that.
know, people go.
Um,
Some people go with a belt buckle. Some people go with a jacket. No, give me something that
I
has
need the
weight.
weapons, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's
um,
cool.
but as soon as it got here, and my husband didn't even know because he was at work at the time, and I put it in my case with all my other stuff. And that night, he woke up several times. He's like, I keep picturing this Civil War guy, and he's pointing a bayonet at me. He won't stop pointing a bayonet at me. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And, I just, that's interesting. And then the next morning, the bayonet was like laying on the ground, just out in the middle. Like it could not have gotten out of my case, but it was just laying out in the middle of the floor. And I was like, okay, it may have a little bit of energy to it. And I slowly put it back in. Hope my husband doesn't see that I brought another ghost home. So
Do you still have it?
I do, yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I mean, I don't know if you've considered this before, but given your background, your master's degree and your work, and you collect this, you have the makings for a paranormal museum. Has that crossed your mind to maybe open one up?
Yeah. That's my dream. That is my
Oh,
dream.
that would be so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
you would have to let me know. I'm like, guess I'm planning. You're in Indiana or Chicago area?
The Chicago area. We're technically Indiana, but Indiana doesn't claim us. Chicago does.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
because you open up a museum, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to Chicago. Let's see what's in it.
Yes,
I want
I
to see
am
this
looking
bayonet.
for it.
I want
I
to see this
want it to be in
bayonet.
a haunted house too. I want it to be
Ooh,
set up so it's really, you really got to go for it,
yeah. That's what. Have you been to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas?
I am going at the end of December. I'm going to go for the first time.
It's trippy. I went there a few years back. I actually I know a YouTuber. She used to live in Las Vegas, and at that time, I said, "Hey, have you?" And she's a total. She's not into paranormal, total skeptic. Her channel is about totally something else. And I said, "Hey, would you want to go to this museum if I go to Vegas and we could both film videos about it?" And she's like, "I live down the street from that museum. I drive by it all the time." She goes, "It's actually kind of crossed my mind to check it out." I'm like, "Cool." So, long story short, we go there, and obviously they won't let you film inside unless you're Sam and Colby.
Right.
But so a lot of YouTubers do, they take the tour and they talk about it afterwards. So we did that. And the place is really good. The house itself that he bought used to be the headquarters for the Nevada State Bar Association. So it was all lawyers in there. And even then, half their staff would not go down to the basement. They're like, you send Joe down there. I'm not going down there. So yeah, the place is very active. And what I didn't tell the woman I was with, I really didn't mention it, and it was something personal for me. But I was wearing two bracelets. One was known as a Benedictine bracelet with the Saint Benedict prayers on it, and that's one of the primary prayers they use during exorcisms. That and Saint Michael, along with a couple others, but Saint Benedict and Saint Michael are the two primary prayers. From what I understand, they're used in exorcisms. And the other bracelet I was wearing, and these were both gifts from two of my sisters. And the other bracelet was called a All Saints bracelet, and it's like little wooden pictures of paintings on there of saints. So I was wearing one on each wrist, and I didn't mention anything about it. I wasn't even really thinking about it. And there was some. It was in October, so there were some really creepy looking scarecrows set up outside as decoration. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Film with my camera, get some B-roll. As I'm walking up to them, I'm like I'm not even 4 feet from the house itself, and I'm outside. My wrist start heating up. And it's not the bracelets that are hot. It's my skin around both bracelets. It felt like hot little pricks, like if you're sitting next to a campfire and like a little ember falls on you. It was all around my wrist. And I'm like, what is, and then it hit me. I was close to the house. Something in that house was already reacting to the religious aspects of my bracelets.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And this is even before I took the tour, because
Oh man.
they take you in like groups of 10 to 15, and they wait until enough people are there, and like, okay. And so the girl came out. She's like, okay, we'll go around to the house, and they're like, if you want to take pictures or film out here, that's fine. So while she's introducing the house and thing to the whole group, that's when I walked off, and that happened. I'm like, okay. And I didn't say anything to the woman I was with. So we take the tour, and I mean, it's well worth it. I mean, even she enjoyed the tour. She's like, I'm not a paranormal person. I'm a skeptic. I'm still a skeptic. But this was a really good tour. It was just like for you from a historical perspective. And they have, it's crazy in there. But the tour itself was about an hour to an hour and a half. And off and on throughout the tour, my wrist would heat up. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's why. And that was why I didn't mention it to anyone. The only people that knew I was wearing that were my sisters, and they were still back in Los Angeles. So I was the only one in Vegas. But yeah, so if you have anything that you keep with you personal as a way of like protection, wear it. Bring.
Yeah.
I totally advise it. So yeah, I would like to hear what you think. I mean, if you make a video about it, I would like to hear that.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this one. Now I'm even more excited after your
Yeah.
story.
So so you've gone to some iconic locations, Salem, Sleepy Hollow, which Sleepy Hollow is still on my bucket list. Ooh, not jealous
Oh,
at
it's
all.
great.
Yeah, not jealous at all. Okay, we don't do jealousy in this channel, but but what's your theory? You know, why some places, you know, maybe obviously battlefields, but what's your personal theory on why some places seem to hold on to energy more than others?
I think that there's a couple different reasons. I know one of them is the natural surroundings, because a lot of people seem to think, and I actually agree, that things like limestone and water kind of help the energy stick around more than just regular grass or whatever. There's a lot of theories. It's almost like nature's video camera, replaying history. And that's what we think that some of the spirits are. They're not actually there. It's more of like an imprint in time. We call those residual hauntings. And then for the other hauntings, we call them intelligent hauntings, the ones that actually interact. I'm thinking that it's more of a personal hold with the location. Like when we do Waverly Hills, a lot of those a lot of those people, they took their last breath there, or maybe that was the only place they felt like they were at home, so they don't want to leave it. So it's kind of like a place where it had a big impact on them.
Wow, that's wow. Waverly, there's so many of these well-known institutions. Is that the one that has like 13 buildings on it, and it's
That
exactly it's like exactly 666 acres?
I don't know.
I think
It has a
that's the
lot of
one.
acres.
Yeah, it's a huge place,
Waverly
but
is huge. Yeah. It's like 300,000 square feet or something. It's huge.
yeah, because
Every time I investigate there, I'm really tired for days.
so it just takes a lot out of you.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because I interviewed someone a few weeks ago who had an experience there where he was on a ghost tour, and this was before he really got into the paranormal. And he was on a ghost tour, and the tour guide said, "Hey, go down that hallway and check out this." So he's walking down the hallway with this other guy, and he's like, "Man, this is creepy." And the other guy was mumbled like, "Yeah, it is." So he goes down, and he's like, "Okay," and he turns around, and the other guy is not there. So he goes back. He was there with his friends, and he's like, "What happened to the guy I went down there with?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? You know, like, you went
Oh
down there
man.
by you went down there by yourself." So that was Waverly. Um,
Yep.
again, I have so many of these bucket list places I have to hit. Most of them are on the East Coast, oddly enough.
Yeah, they always are.
But yeah, and how you phrase that, nature's recorder or recording machine, that's a
Hmm.
very interesting way to put it. And and I do believe the water and limestone do play factors as a very strong conduit, because I'm here in Austin, Texas, and about an hour or so outside of Austin, there is a rural area called the Devil's Backbone. And one of the reasons they call it that is the landscape itself is like 90% limestone. Ridges, everything, everywhere. You go for miles, everything's limestone practically.
Mm.
And there have been reports there for like since the last century or so of people seeing uh, Native Americans and entire troops of cavalry officers on horseback passing through their front yard. And what I found interesting, and I want to go back and test this if I can. A lot of the stories, what makes them unique about this area is that the ghosts that were witnessed were interacting with them. Not so much interacting, but looked back at them, saw them, the living person. So I'm wondering, again, sometimes I go out on a tangent here, but are they seeing, yeah, I do a lot of tangents. I'm a Gemini. We get us on one topic, we go to three others.
I'm
Uh,
like that too.
so, but I wonder, when these people see a ghost that notices them as well, are they really seeing a ghost, or are they looking into the past?
Right.
And the past can see at that moment to them, we're like, who are these people? And could that be because there is so much of a conduit, natural conduit in the earth there itself with all the limestone?
Right.
So,
That's what I wonder too. And I think there's a lot of that.
wow. So now you are also, if I'm correct here, you are a mom of three.
Hmm.
Uh, have your kids ever expressed curiosity about your work? And flip side of that, have they ever had any of their own unexplained experiences?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. My daughter definitely is interested. She's my middle child, and she just went on her first investigation with me, and she had a ball. She was just a natural. My boys, not at all. They do not want to do anything. Uh, as far as ghosts go, they're
So,
not interested at all.
so really, it's the women in the family.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that's cool. Kind of how it is in my family. I have five sisters, and growing up, I mean, we were always because we're Native American on my mom's side. So with us, it was never our ghost real. More of okay, who is it?
Right.
And then growing up, it was always either my mom or my sisters that had a paranormal experience, and not me. Now, me a little bit more, obviously, because I have the channel, I go to these places, so the odds increase for me. But yeah, growing up, it was always my sisters. So I think,
Right.
and I actually, a woman told me one time, we were talking about this, I think I was about 17 at the time. And the woman I was talking to, my sister, we were talking to her, she was probably in her 60s, I would guess. And I mentioned that, and she felt, that maybe women are more perceptive to things like that because women historically have had to endure so much more than men have had to. So it makes them a little more open on a psychic level. And I never forgot that, and I've always wondered
Yeah.
that because women, obviously you've always had it harder than men, as sort of, I'm the first one to say that growing up with sisters, that fact was beaten into me on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am I tell people chivalry was beaten into me
I bet.
literally at a very early age. If I didn't hold the door open for one of my sisters and I'm 5 years old, yeah, don't even, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So so now you also have which now like as I was saying earlier, I'm a huge X-Files fan,
Mhm.
TV show Supernatural,
Oh yeah.
and I do like some separate science fiction, but for me, the films and books that I like to watch and read are the ones that have like one foot in grounded in reality and one it's like, okay, this could be possible. And
Mhm.
I didn't even realize that's confirmed or that's known as urban fantasy. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm an urban fantasy fan. And I guess my number one favorite is the book over here over my left. I don't know if you can see it. That's the Dresden Files.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah.
Favorite series. I've been hooked on that. I've been reading that series for, God, almost 12, 15 years, something like that. And it's just each book, you can't put it down,
Right.
because I found it because they made a TV series out of it. And a lot of the fans panned the TV series, but I like it. It was different, and that's what led me to the books.
Mhm.
So, well, sorry, long roundabout way, but now you have delved into the world of urban fantasy. Uh, you have that coming out. Also, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself there. But now your new book is The Jaded Knight, what I understand.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. So I have a treat for my listeners, that you have been kind enough to bring a book trailer. So we're going to play the book trailer right now. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, you'll be able to hear what's going on as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up that book trailer, and then we'll discuss and we'll find out the story behind the story. All right, here we go.
Every day, I wake up in a world that teeters on the edge of a knife, where shadows whisper secrets and darkness lurks just beyond the veil. In a battle that feels more like a curse than a calling, I am the newest recruit of the Lux Bellator, the supernatural agents tasked with keeping humanity safe. I'm shipped off to New York City and a new life far away from my home in Indiana. But I'm ready. I can feel the power crackling beneath my skin, begging to be unleashed. And Nathan, what can I say about Nathan? With his brooding gaze and sharp words, he ignites a fire within me that terrifies and thrills. How can I focus on the demons outside when the real battle rages in my heart? Love and war intertwined like threads of fate, and I'm caught in the middle, desperate to protect what's left of my sanity while chaos calls my name. I'm Sadie Baker, a witch, a warrior, and a reluctant hero.
Okay, that was awesome. So, tell me, what was your inspiration for this story? Why did you want to bring this story to the fold?
It has been inside of me for years. And I guess the dam kind of just broke, and I just sat down and wrote all 3 books within a month.
Wow.
It just all came out finally. Um, I've always been a fan of fantasy and fantasy romance, of course, the woman in me.
Well, who isn't? Oh
You're
my
right, yeah.
God.
But I didn't see a story that was quite what I was thinking, what I really wanted to read. So I was like, you know what, I'll just write my own. And I've always been interested in witches and all that. Maybe it's growing up with Harry Potter and whatnot, but I love that. I love fantasy, and I wanted to make my own mark into fantasy, kind of away from my nonfiction that I do with the Hauntings Around America. I wanted to, get into a world that I could create, that I want to live in, type thing.
So in a sense, and I think because I've always felt I have like a writer hiding somewhere like you inside of me, like one day I will write that book. And especially, it's like for me the perspective is like, okay, I'm actually writing about myself and a fictional story because I would love for myself to be. Is that what it was like for you? It was like, okay, it's a story, but it's really me.
A lot of it, yeah. The main character, especially with this one, she's got a lot of my attitude, and a lot of my clumsiness. Which, if you read the book, you'll find out what I mean. So it has the humor in it, it has the magical abilities in it, and it has the romance in it. But for me, it's just a fun world I'd like to live in. So I decided to write a book about it.
And you also have a YouTube channel. So one of the ideas, because I have an idea for a story series, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just make a web series about it as well? So you have a YouTube channel. You could absolutely turn this into a series. And,
Yeah.
I mean, with AI, and I mean, if you watch a few of the current AI videos and the AI artwork and film, what they do with it is insane. So you could
Yes.
literally make your own web series for your channel and become like your own empire. There's one girl, she has a YouTube channel. She actually started when she was like 14, and she calls it something Adventures of Sunshine Girl or something along those lines. And she actually started it with her mom. And the videos, she kind of plays herself having these paranormal experiences, and she's recording it for YouTube. And it got insanely popular. She's got all these book deals from it. But starting out, people weren't sure, like, wait a minute, is this real? Are you actually experiencing your home, or are you doing a fictional story here? So that was kind of the fun of it, and that's actually what gave me the idea. Yeah, the girl, like, she had millions of followers, and like her mom and her dad was kind of like, okay, that's cool, have fun with it. But her and her mom are totally running it. And it's like, it started as a series on her YouTube channel, and it's moving on to the books. I think she has her own merchandise now. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want that.
So I got a couple more questions and then we can wrap up. So with the new novel coming out, and you're also going to be on an upcoming episode of The Proof is Out There on the History Channel, which congratulations. That's awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
So with so many creative and investigative projects happening for you practically at the same time, what's the one thing you hope people take away from your work in the paranormal?
I hope that they look at it as something fun and somewhat educational, but not so much tedious. When people look at ghost hunters, they look at these very serious people that have no idea how to have fun. So I want it to be a little more lighthearted, and I want more people to, enjoy it, whether they take it as, reality like a lot of us do, or if they just take it as something to do. I want people to, just be open to it and enjoy it and take the history from it, that kind of thing.
Always a history nerd.
Always.
That's cool. I like that. And I mean, because it's tough. Even when I'm looking for guests for this podcast, and I'm going through so many different like YouTube channels and Instagram pages to find people, it's like so many people are trying to be the next Zach Bagans, to where
Right.
they copy the way he talks. Their opening credits are the same as Ghost Adventures. I'm like, you know what? Be original.
Right.
That's why, like, for myself, I'm not trying to like find definitive proof to show the world, like, see, this is true. I'm
Right.
going see what I see. If I catch something, great. If I don't, oh well. But I want someone to have fun on, because I'm all about the road trip either way.
Right.
So it's going to be a road trip. If we get to go, it's cool. If we don't, hey, we're still on the road seeing all kinds of cool things. So that's my approach to my entire channel. That's why I talk to travelers and the paranormal crowd, because that's how I am. I'm a little bit of both.
Right. Yes.
So wrapping up, and sometimes my questions get a little out there. Sometimes they just get cheesy, and I'm sorry. I have a cheesy one. So if Hollywood were to make a movie about one of your investigations, which case would you choose? And more importantly, who would play you in the film?
That part's hard. I know exactly which investigation. It would be an investigation in Miami at the Gold Coast Railroad Museum, which was an old World War II something. I don't know. It was like a Zeppelin type place. I don't know what it was actually.
Sounds massive.
It is. It's big. And the day I went down there was a hurricane. It was just wild. It was just, I should have known it was going to be a crazy night. And I had joined War Party Paranormal. They have their own TV show. They're
Right.
really cool.
I watched your, I think I saw your interview with them.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, they seem like nice guys.
Oh, they're great. They're fun to investigate with. And we were exhausted because this was one of those paranormal lockdowns where you cannot leave. And so we're there, and this spirit was just like cursing us out the whole night, and he was touching us, and he was just mad, and he was screaming at it. It was just the funniest thing. I was so tired because I flew in that morning, and I had to catch a flight as soon as I left that investigation back out. So I hadn't slept in like 36 hours.
Wow.
I was slap happy. So I think it would be a funny night. It would be a funny movie.
So all that was going on, and there was a hurricane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's a movie right there.
Right. It was just perfect.
All the perfect elements. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So down to the nitty gritty, because here on Beyond the Compass, we get to the nitty gritty. Who would play you in the movie?
Who would play me in the movie? That's a good question, and I don't know. I haven't seen a movie in forever. I don't even know who an actress is anymore. That's a good question. I don't know.
Off the top of my head, and I think because she's blonde, you're blonde. I mean, the one comes to mind. Maybe Sydney Sweeney.
Okay, I would take that. Yes.
Or I don't know her name, but she was just in that recent movie, the remake of Twisters. The main girl in Twisters. I can see one of those two in the story. And you're already in a hurricane, so she's got the weather right there.
There we go.
Hey, so okay, let's call our agent.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, wow, Erin, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. This has been a blast. You are such a sweetheart. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, what my audience would like to know is what you're up to next. What we have coming from Hauntings Around America, and yeah. So where can we find you online?
Okay. Well, online, I have my own website, hauntingsaroundamerica.com. You can go on there and find all kinds of ghost stories. If you're looking for, I have them from all different states, all 50 states. So if you're looking for a ghost story from your state, just go in there, type in your state. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, though I'm hardly ever on Facebook. So if you want to follow me, Instagram or YouTube are usually the two to find me on. Sorry, my dog is loud. Apologies.
No worries.
Let's see. What was the other question?
And anything coming up that aside from the book? I know the book is coming out in January 30th, from what I understand. January
30th, followed by book 2, which I'm going to look at around April, and then book 3 will be a little later in the summer.
And the one in January, this is book 1 of the Bellator series?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
book 1, 2, and 3 will be ready. I'm already on a whole nother series I'm writing. So I'm going to try and turn them out real quick. I'm also going to be doing a whole bunch of investigations. I'm going to be down in South Carolina. I'll be in Vegas.
That's what I'm waiting for.
I cannot wait for Vegas.
I want to know what happens, what you experience at the Haunting Museum. Because and that was 3 or 4 years ago. I was there, so they constantly add more stuff. So that should be fun.
I cannot wait for that one.
Absolutely. And also, for those of you listening, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will provide links to all of her social media, her channel, and her website in the video description below. So you can check those out, start following her channel and her adventures. Erin, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. And this is Eric with Beyond the Compass, where travelers and the paranormal meet at the crossroads.